All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you so much for watching, for listening. I do appreciate you guys very much. Quick shout out to both our sponsors, Sunny Reds, 1841 Abbott Road, and also Imperial Pizza, 1655 Main Street, and also 1035 Abbott Road, deep in the heart of South Buffalo. All right, folks, this is our Thursday podcast, late on the video side on a Wednesday night, and I'm joined by not one, but two very special guests here. Sabres beat reporter for The Athletic, Matthew Fairburn, and knower of all things Sabres, especially prospects, Kris Baker, co-hosts together of the Baker Fairburn Hockey Show, which, by the way, is number 90 or number 66 right now in the United States on the Apple charts, man, hitting it pretty high there. I know that. I'm sure they don't, because Kris is a little bit lazy and doesn't look that stuff up. But what's going on, guys? How you doing?
Sounds a little low. That 66.
It does sound low. At one point, we were
a little light there, Moran.
We were number one in Brazil at one point.
Oh, they love you guys in Brazil.
So
they love me.
You got to frame things correctly.
They love me in the Bahamas. I was looking, though, for real. I mean, you guys, I track this stuff with you guys and a handful of other podcasts all the time. You guys are constantly anywhere in the top 80 up to 20, 25. It's pretty cool to see. Spitting Chicklets. You guys are right alongside like some of the biggest names are out there. Spitting Chicklets, 32 Thoughts, the tip sheet with Jeff Merrick. Good stuff, man. Good stuff.
Yeah,
Podcast
Elliot's nervous. Elliot Friedman's nervous about us.
As he should be, man.
Said we're coming.
We were supposed to do this show originally live as Sunny Reds tonight, and this Kris, you can see on the video side, is not very happy with me. I'm a little bit under the weather, but I'll also be honest with you guys. I was talking to Matthew right before you jumped in, Kris. I think if the weather was like 10, 15 degrees warmer and maybe a little less windy, I probably would have suddenly felt a little bit better. I don't like to be cold, and I don't think I'm ever going to get over that, man.
Pat, when did you leave Florida? How many years has it been?
2021, I moved back.
And you're still pulling this shit.
I know. I am.
Okay, I'll let you go, but DoorDash.
Let me ask you guys a question.
I'll get you my information. I can get some DoorDash Sunny Reds.
Dude, I promise you, we're gonna get Sunny Reds soon. It's really good, man.
Right.
We did a show last time. The three of us did a show together live. It was actually at Imperial Pizza as well, and that was a very memorable show because Granado got fired right after that. I don't know if he got fired right before that or right. He got fired right before that, actually. I remember that. We were going over some candidates, and Lindy Ruff kind of sort of felt like a little bit of a long shot at that moment, and quickly that changed. We'll get into that, some hockey stuff. I got a couple of Bills things that I want to ask you guys while I got you on the show. Something a little bit different for you guys. But let me ask you this, all seriousness aside about the weather for me. You guys have been Northerners like essentially all your lives. I know, Matt, you went down to Missouri for college and all, but besides that, Northerners, have you found as you guys have gotten older, does the cold bother you a little bit more? And I know this is just the infancy part of cold weather season, winter coming here in Buffalo, but as you guys have aged a little bit, do you find it harder or just the same to deal with the elements this time of year?
I don't mind it so much. I mean, there's always that pull. I feel like it's like February, March when you start to get, it's too gray, it's too windy.
Yeah.
I like the snow. I don't really mind the snow, and the cold I can actually deal with. Sometimes I find when I was in Winnipeg in January a few years ago, and not something I recommend to anybody is Winnipeg in January, but it was sunny and it was dry. So it was like 5 degrees Fahrenheit, but I was like, I could deal with this all day. It's the windiness and the gray that kind of beat me down, but it's kind of the perk of the hockey beat is that I'm grinding through the winter. And so it gets me out of the house. It keeps me going. I think when you get stuck in the house, the winter can get to you.
Yeah. What about you, Kris? I mean, it's a hockey thing. I think hockey guys don't mind just cold weather. It kind of goes hand in hand.
I have a milestone birthday coming up, and I was just telling someone the other day, like, I'm getting tired of the cold, to be honest with you. I
Yeah.
love winter. I like 4 seasons. I like winter sports, everything that Matt just said. But as an example, like, I had like $100 gift card to use at a retailer online, all sorts of cool stuff. I bought 2 blankets, if that tells you kind of where I'm at. So, no, I get out, walk the dogs multiple times a day. I'm bundling up. Like, it's not even as cold as it's going to get. And I'm hood up, ski gloves on. Like, I'm ready. I'm ready to go somewhere else, I think, for a month or 2 this winter.
Yeah.
I might. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing about what you guys do for work. Well, between, Kris, what you do, with remotely and stuff, being able to do your podcast is that in today's world, you can literally live anywhere and still be able to at least do your show. What are a few things? Now, obviously, this time of year is different for you guys because you're hell of a lot busier. It's hockey season. But when you do find a little bit of free time here and there, a couple days between games or whatever is going on, what do you guys kind of what are you into? Like, what do you do to pass the time, to kind of relax and kick back and maybe get away from hockey just a little bit here and there?
In the winter? Or
right. Like right around now.
I mean,
in the midst of the season.
I got 2 kids, 4 and under. So free time, like they truly take up most of my free time because in this job, it's like I'm missing, some nights here and there, obviously with games at night and weekends and everything. So spare minutes, I'm soaking up that family time at home. And, other than that, especially in the winter, that really takes up such a big chunk of it because my off days are all weird during hockey season. During the summer, a little bit different. I would say golf, but I haven't gotten out to golf in I don't know, since my second son was born. I don't think I
know.
Gotten out there. Kris could probably speak to that. I don't think he and I have been on the golf course in a few years at this point. But I like to run. I've picked that up in the last couple of years. Exercise and otherwise just kind of hanging with the fam and catching up on that rest and relaxation.
What are you up to, Kris? I know people like to enjoy your show, listen to you guys talk hockey all the time. I'm sure they kind of like a little bit of a peek behind the curtain a little bit. Like, what's some of the things you're into? And I know you like to get out when you get a chance and, go out and get some good food, a drink or two. What are you up to?
Yeah, it depends on the season. When it's nice out, like to get out golfing, like to get out, sit on some patios, try some new cocktails, new food. Wintertime, it's been more test kitchen, making a lot of new recipes at home, a lot of new cocktails at home. We golfed last weekend or the weekend before that. So still kind of hanging on to the golf, but no, Pat, you'll actually appreciate this. So I finally feel more normal, like a normal member of society. And I brought this up on the show that Matt and I do. I've started catching up on TV because I didn't watch a lot of TV series. So I've been knocking them out. Girlfriend and I, we usually watch together every night, even when we're not together. We're watching the show, on Netflix or Hulu or whatever. So I've been catching up on things. I'm almost done I'm doing the order of Better Call Saul. And then going to watch, I think it's, you dive into Breaking Bad, El Camino, and then you go back and you finish Better Call. I'm doing that right now. I'm in the middle of that. No, but I'm catching up on stuff. So I'll have to read some of your reviews for some other ones.
Those are 2 of the greatest shows ever. Matt, you don't really get a lot of chance to, you don't get the chance to watch television too often, do you?
No, I it's funny, Kris was bringing this up. I feel like it was maybe this time last year, over the summer, maybe that he's like, I'm getting into all these shows and some of the shows he's bringing up, I'm cracking up. I'm like, dude, you're 10 years behind on that one. But it's great. I mean, yeah, I definitely, I'm trying to think what we're into now. The morning show on Apple TV. We've been keeping up with
Jennifer Aniston.
We've been keeping up with that every week.
Trying to get him to watch Task.
I just watched that. Me and my wife binged it and caught up and then caught the finale live. Awesome show.
Yeah, great show.
Yeah, now I feel like I'm getting the recommendations from Kris. When he first got into this, I was sending him the ones he had to catch up on, and now he's on the cutting edge. So this is good.
Part of this time of year for me, and again, I am, well, I will very much admit that I'm soft with this weather. I will go out. I work from home. I do the podcast 90% of the time from home. I have a side job that I got to go out for. I go grocery shopping and, friends' birthdays, or just got to get out and have some drinks sometimes. But I don't go out unless I need to once it gets cold. It's just how I am. And I really bunker down and watch a ton of TV shows. Kris just brought up Task. I thought that was a fantastic show. I really hope that they come back with another season. I'm not going to give anything away because it's relatively new, but it's left open enough that they could do another season, and there has been some talk about it. I think I'm committed. Kris, I don't know if you've seen any of these shows, and they're old for you. Maybe they're new, but I'm going to go do an NBC binge this summer or this winter of comedies, like rewatch again, like The Office and Parks and Rec and 30 Rock. Those are some of my favorite shows ever. I don't know if you've even seen any of those.
Some of them I have. I mean, I'm not a total mutant. Like, I've seen some of those, but I watched The Office and shit like that. But no, I mean, like some of these other ones that are just like well known, like Matt was bringing up like 10 years ago or whatever, maybe not that long, but like I just finished like Succession.
So,
not too long ago.
That's one of the greats of the last.
That was
decade,
awesome.
I would say.
Yeah.
I feel like it's like the prestige shows that Kris let fall through the cracks. I think, the network, the Office, stuff like that, that's crossed his radar. But it's all these like HBO and Apple TV stuff that he's been catching up on.
I know the memes. I know all the memes.
Yeah,
but I never saw the shows. Now everything's coming together.
I feel like Succession is one of those shows. Severance is another one. It's, kind of newer too.
That one was good. Yeah.
They're great shows, and there's no in between. Like, I feel like people are either going to absolutely love the arcs and the storytelling of it, the character development, or you're absolutely going to hate it because maybe you don't think there's enough like drama or action and things that are going on. To some people, it drags. To other people, it's just completely brilliant storytelling. I'm going to bunker down and watch a lot of TV. Listen, we could talk TV shows all day. I do want to get into a couple things here I'm sure people want to know about as well. Your podcast that you guys have been doing lately, I've noticed a change. Not all the time, but at least sometimes now. I enjoy it a lot. So what I've been doing is, I get up in the morning. I do work from home here in my home office little studio. And so I get up, I make my breakfast, get my cup of coffee, whatever. I come in here and I sit and I go up on my, my YouTube, and there's a Baker Fairburn hockey show waiting for me early in the morning, which I love doing that. I mean, it's become like the first thing, my first listen to every day, especially when want to get locked in with hockey stuff. What made you guys, is it work schedules or things like that? What made you decide to start doing some of these early in the morning? I mean, I love it. And then I'll follow up with this other question too. Is it hard for you guys, and this is for both of you, to get up, maybe not so much get up that early, but get your brain working and functioning, your vocals, being able to talk for an hour? Was that a little bit of an adjustment, getting up that early and recording the show like you guys have been?
No, I'm an early riser. I think part of this was, Matt and I, we started doing the show and a lot of them were after games, but we need to remember Matt has a job to do. First and foremost is he writes for The Athletic. And a lot of times we weren't going live until 9:45, 10 o'clock. Well, that became more problematic for me, to be honest with you, because I'm up early. And a lot of times I'm sinking on the couch. I'm catching up on TV from the last 20 years, then I got to peel my ass off the couch, come up here, do a show. And a lot of times we were going for an hour and a half. And then Matt and I hang out after, sit in the room and just kind of decompress, talk a little bit more about stuff, just whatever. Sure. And it was just kind of like, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the community that was cultivated with it, but the mornings are so much better. Like, even sitting here now after 7 o'clock on a weeknight, like, I'm hating this, no offense. Like, I just wish I was downstairs. Like, this reminds me. No, I'm kind of kidding, but no, the reality is that
I know what you're saying.
The mornings are, I just think it's better. And Matt and I talked about it even last year when we were doing the nights, that if we could just maybe we don't have to have a live component all the time. And we have a tighter show now. And we got to remember that it's not just a YouTube show. We started off on YouTube, focused on YouTube. We're still focused on the YouTube piece of it, but the audio component is still important.
Sure.
And it's a much better show when we do it in the mornings without the live element. And to your point about the day, Matt, Matt can probably speak to this more, but I go right from doing the show to what I do for work, which is not hockey related at all, but the brain is already going, everything's firing, and it just makes my days better. I'm more productive during the day the days that we do a Baker Fairburn hockey show at 6 a.m. at the crack of dawn in the morning.
Before I ask you, Kris, you brought up something that I wanted to, it triggered me as well. Whether it's doing it in the morning or like how we're doing this right now, we're recording a show. There's an element to doing a live show. I think that is awesome. Giving fans who want to interact a chance, and, you keep the conversation going, and that brings a lot of value. But I think it comes sometimes at a cost because, if you're running the comments and Matthew's bringing up a point, you're trying to focus on what Matt's saying and setting up whatever you're going to come up with next. But you also got to have your eyes on those comments. And sometimes you guys have a popular show, man. You get a lot of commenters on your show. It could throw you off a little bit. You know what I mean? And sometimes it could kind of take away the flow that you got because these people are taking their time out of their day or their night to watch your show live, and they're commenting, and you want to make sure you get to them. But sometimes it doesn't really, they might comment well after you've already talked about that or well before you want to get to what they're talking about. I find this all the time when I'm doing Bill's live shows. Do you feel that way a little bit by not doing a show? Like you said, in your case, you guys recording in the morning instead of streaming live at night. Are you able to focus in a little bit more because you don't have that live crowd element going on?
Yeah, I think speaking for me, we don't have a producer or anything, right? So like
Right,
you said,
same.
we have to kind of have an eye on the comments. And I think what we've realized, and we didn't really know it until we started doing the show this way, is that like we only did live for the first, like almost every single show that we
Yeah.
started. Probably the first, I don't even know how many we've done, but
We
let's
did
say
over
the first
70 live shows.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what you like, to Chris's point about how long they would go, an hour and a half, and it wouldn't even feel like an hour and a half because you're just interacting with the chat and you're going back and forth and people are bringing up new topics and you almost don't want to stop because people keep commenting and you want to keep the conversation going. I think there's a ton of value to that. I also think, to Chris's point about like remembering that it is an audio show, and even for YouTube too, like the people who weren't there live aren't feeling that same energy that everybody watching live is feeling. So I think there's a way to do the live shows that we're trying to figure out, like when it will work timing wise. And then you can kind of sit back and be like, okay, this is a live show. We're not necessarily stressing about whether this is a picture perfect podcast. We're just trying to engage with our community. But when you're trying to do a podcast, there is a component, I think, that it's a lot tighter and a lot easier for us to rip through topics in 45, 50 minutes and get everything we want in when it's just the two of us talking.
You guys both bring up a great point too, is a lot of times when you are focused on YouTube, I do this from time to time. I do 5 shows a week, and sometimes I'll have a live show and I'm so focused on the video side of it that I'm forgetting about the audio, trying to appease too much on the video side. And I sometimes I feel like the audio, the presentation of that could suffer a little bit. Like if somebody's not watching the show, they're not going to get as much value because I'm pointing out what you're seeing or what you're doing instead of locking in on the audio. I still do that from time to time. How important has it been? You guys have become close friends now through the years too, to have that relationship on a podcast. I feel like you could feel chemistry. I don't think it's something that you can fake. You know what I mean? If you do a show with somebody and the chemistry is not there, you could try to front, so to speak, but you're not really. I feel like people see through it. The fact that you guys have become close to each other, I feel like that kind of, you can hear that in your conversations a lot. Kris, how important is that to have a relationship with the person that you're a co-host? Now, if you're doing a guest spot once in a while, it's a different story. But when you got a co-host, like you guys do a show together, how important is that relationship?
Oh, it makes it's everything. It makes it easy. It's not work when you're doing it. You're just talking. And, Matt and I talk more, I think, off the show than we do on the show, and it makes, I think, for a better show when we are doing things together. I wish, Matt, that we could almost, record the phone conversations.
Yeah.
Because those are almost better. Those would almost be even better podcasts, to be honest with you. But no, I think I think it's everything. You know what I mean? It just makes things easy. It's easy to kind of go into, just fire it up at 6 a.m. and do something without even really talking about what you're going to talk about, because we kind of almost know what we want to talk about every now and then. I'll need a show sheet, but I needed it in the beginning. I need it less and less because I think of the rapport that Matt and I have, and also in the environment of doing the show so many times. We'll be coming up on 100 shows pretty soon, and it's easy. It's fun. It doesn't feel like work, and that's important for me.
Yeah.
To have it not feel like work.
I mean, it's the only reason, or a major reason, to do it. It might surprise your listeners to know that we are not rich off of the show, unfortunately. Maybe one day we will be, but we are not. It has not made us fabulously wealthy. So if you don't enjoy who you're talking to, then, to your point earlier about, waking up early in the morning and like starting the day that way, maybe 5 minutes, I'm kicking off the cobwebs. But to Kris's point, by the time I'm going upstairs, when we're done, I'm energized for the day. My brain's already thinking. I'm way more productive, with the rest of my days because of our conversations. And I think it, like when I did a show with Joe B on the Bills, or when I, helped out with Tim Graham and Jonah on their radio show, like, which has since become a podcast. It's sort of the barometer for me. If I'm going to do something like that and commit the time, it's going to be people that I enjoy hanging out with and enjoy talking to anyways. And that's, been the case every time I've done it. And it's the only reason I would do this show, is because I enjoy, talking to Kris. I enjoy talking to him about hockey, life, everything, but it makes it 10 times easier. And I do, to your point, I think it makes it a much better show than if, we were sort of forcing it.
Unlike, say, the Buffalo Bills, too, or not just the Bills, football, the market just feels so much more saturated with the Bills. I mean, a lot of them are good ones, but there's like a gazillion just Buffalo Bills podcasts out there. It's really, I feel like it's much harder to really make your mark when it comes to that. Whereas on the hockey side, there's maybe 3 or 4 that I would consider like legitimately credible. Of course, you guys being one of them. Buffalo Sabres centric podcasts. Do you kind of feel the same way? I'm not telling you to hype up your own show, but just generally speaking, like there's a better market, I feel like, for hockey podcasts right now than there is, like I said, a 1,000,001 Buffalo Bills podcast. There's just so many out there.
I think there's a podcast for every type of fan,
Sure.
On the Sabre side. Some that want just, game or, more fan oriented podcasts. I think there's some that like the bigger picture, where the league's going directionally, the business side of it. I don't know. I think that Matt and I have a good balance of skill sets. I mean, we have a trained journalist at one of the best journalism schools in the country, works for one of the best brands in sports journalism, and then whatever the hell I am, who's been around for a long time. You know what I mean? And I think it kind of comes together nicely on how we do things. And I think the big thing for what Matt and I try to do on the show is to not just be boring and talk about the games. We do talk about the games, but we try not to focus on them. We know that there's problems. There's always going to be problems. In Buffalo, there's big problems when it comes to the hockey team. We're trying to solve the problems. We're trying to create awareness for issues that maybe not every fan or listener is thinking about, whether it's cap compliance, all sorts of things, right? But there's a bigger picture, but also trying to understand the business side. I worked for a business for 21 years that went downhill and had cash flow constraints. I kind of see where I think some things are going with the Buffalo Sabres franchise. Just calling out awareness for that. I think that the strength of the show, when it is strong, that Matt and I do, has been, I think we've been ahead of some things that have come to fruition. And, I think that we can keep doing that by keeping our ears to the ground, but also, Matt's down there on the day-to-day, and I've been around, like I said, for a long time.
Matt,
historical perspective. Yeah.
I didn't know if you were going to add something. Matt,
I was going to say, one of the things I've realized that, when you're in this job, whether I was covering the Bills or covering the Sabres, like I've always been trained that, you're down the middle, right? You're objective and you're, you know, not wrapped up in it. And I almost see a different value to that now that I'm on the Sabres is that, because people will ask me all the time, like I see them in the comments or they're like, man, like this can't be easy on you, covering this team. And I'm like, it's fine actually. Like, and I think that's,
Yeah.
it's sort of like a benefit to being it's a service in a way, like to be able to talk about the team and cut through it without being tied down emotionally, because I can only imagine and I appreciate like the people that watch our show, that comment, that join the live chat, that are like still in it day to day and wrapped up emotionally. So to Chris's point, if we can, forecast some of what might happen or talk through solutions to problems and think about things that way, and we're doing it without the emotional baggage, I think that can be an advantage in some ways. And it's not that we don't get worked up occasionally on the show, right? There's a lot of stuff about the Sabres that'll get you going over the last few years, but to be able to be that for people, like what in my writing and in the podcast, to be like, look, I'm not tied down by the I'm not a fan. So like the last 14 years, all this, like it's more of a puzzle to me to figure out, how did this happen? How do they get out of it? And it's something completely different for fans.
One of my favorite things about The Athletic has always been is, there's a lot of outlets that will, they'll say that they're objective and that they don't care who wins the game. Some of them are true, some of them not so much. But The Athletic, between you with the Sabres, you cover the Bills, Joe B, obviously for sure with the Bills, who did not grow up a Bills fan, even though he grew up in this area. And obviously Tim, is kind of a columnist and feature writer and covering both teams. There's not emotion in how you cover the team. There's the story to get, like you said, putting together puzzles. Somebody like me, like that Bills Miami game on Sunday, I promise you, if there would have been a hidden camera in my living room, that would have been 50 times better than anything I did on the podcast that night. Now, to be fair, there's some people who want to hear that kind of overreaction, emotional, reaction to a Bills or to a Sabres win or a loss. But the even keelness of both you guys is one of the things that I admire the most. Before we take a break, I'll start with you, man. I want to ask you a question about the Bills. You've covered the Bills before, Kris. You follow sports way beyond hockey. You're pretty plugged in with what the Bills are doing. How hard is it right now being Josh Allen? That's the question I want to ask you both. I'll start with you, Matt. He's the reigning MVP. He's got the famous actress wife now. He's married. Literally, like, the burden of this franchise is literally all over him and on his shoulders right now. He has played good, but not to the standard that we've seen him play before. I feel like certainly not like last year, a little more reckless. I wonder how much pressure gets to him at times. Just what it's like being Josh Allen in a city like this. It just is so rightfully starved for a championship, whether it's hockey, whether it's football. Just being Josh Allen, how hard do you think it is right now to be somebody like Josh Allen?
I don't know, you're rattling off all those things and it doesn't sound too terrible. MVP,
Yeah, sounds awful. Yeah.
Married,
Hot Hollywood life,
freshly married,
$250 million contract. Yeah, I guess.
Like, I don't know. I walk around the Sabres locker room every day, and it seems pretty hard to be those guys. It seems pretty hard to be Tage Thompson or Alex Tuck or Rasmus Dahlin or Lindy Ruff comparatively. But I get your point that there's a weight that happens the longer this goes on. And, it starts to, he's going to be 30, next spring? Is that right?
Yeah.
So, 30 years old is sort of it's probably past the midway point of his career. I think would be safe to say, at the very least. It's not to say that all of his best years are behind him, but that they're dwindling a little bit.
Sure.
And the longer you go when you haven't gotten one, that starts to become, the story and the pressure that's around you. And it's not him necessarily. It's not all on him. He's had some amazing moments in the playoffs, games that he should have won, and his team didn't bail him out or didn't hold up their end of the bargain. But you do think about that. Like I think about it with Connor McDavid out in Edmonton, as the years go on. It's a pretty similar thing, right? A generational player in a city that the Oilers are everything to the culture in Edmonton, just like the Bills are here. And that's a lot to have on one guy. And it feels more so on one person with the Bills because so much of the story has been about what's not around him, right? And maybe the failings of building the rest of the team or the shortcomings of the coaching. And you have this once in a generation type of talent that deserves a championship, but we know deserves got nothing to do with it in pro sports.
Sure. And I'll tell you this. I think the Cincinnati divisional game, I think 2022 maybe, that was the one time in the playoffs where Josh didn't hold up his end. He played terrible in that game, along with almost everybody else. But even in these defeats, I feel like he's always played well enough to win. Do you get a sense that he's growing frustrated right now? You mentioned the weapons. This could be for you too, Kris. Just the weapons around him that aren't performing. I mean, there's a lot of Keon Coleman talk going on right now. He's just statistically, he's not getting it done. It just looks like almost like an eyesore out there at times. I think he's had 45 yards of receiving less than 46 yards of receiving less than 8 straight games now, man. That's not what you expect for a guy. It's like they desperately want him to be their guy. Kincaid's hurt again. Well, we're going to get into injuries with the Sabres here in just a few minutes after the break. But I don't know. I kind of get a sense, I don't know how hyped in you guys are because you're covering hockey primarily, but get a sense that he's just frustrated with what's going on around him right now. And how long do you expect him before maybe that breaks a little bit and he wants some change?
Yeah, man. I mean, you could take it. I think that there's no way that he's not frustrated. I mean, the depth of his targets are like just so low.
Yeah.
The vertical game is not there. And I think that he probably sees it where if he has that threat, it opens things up for him to really do what he does best, which is just take it and go. I feel like he feels limited. He has to feel that way. But no, man, I mean, you probably have a better idea, but I think that he's going to want things to change in the coordinator game, because I mean, he's not going to get the personnel by the end of the year, clearly. Right.
No.
I mean, there's nothing that they can do. So, and you're starting to see some crazy stuff. Like, I don't know who it was today that wanted Hairston to get some reps at wide receiver. I don't know if you saw that. I was like doom scrolling today. And I'm like, I'm seeing stuff like that. Like, that's where we're at, is like throwing all sorts of shit at the wall. It
looks like on film,
makes you wonder what he thinks.
It looks like on film that he's just not trusting receivers. It looks like there could be some plays there and he's just not trusting it right now. Do you notice that, Matt, from what you've seen?
Yeah. I think Kris is selling me Cole Hardman short here. You don't think he can save the day?
No, but it's funny though what Pat just said though. I was watching some film breakdown, and like he's looking off guys, and it was from the Miami game last week. Guys that are clearly open, then he just dumps down to Cook.
It was weird because he was in the zone against Kansas City, and he looked like the Josh Allen everybody's used to seeing. But that Miami game, I'm with you, Pat. There were moments where you thought, okay, there's so much talk about his receivers, and I get that because some of them have definitely come up short, but it's starting to almost compound the issue. It's affecting how he's playing, which is probably affecting how they're playing, and there's something just a little bit off between. There's definitely a talent problem, I think, with the wide receivers, just in terms of where they stack up across the league. And then there's, you fold in the scheme part of it with Joe Brady and, the reliance on the running game. And then, how that's all impacting Josh Allen. He didn't look like himself on Sunday. I shouldn't say he hasn't looked like himself all year, because 2 weeks ago he looked fantastic. And whether he's frustrated, I mean, it's hard to look at him on the sideline on Sunday and think he's anything but, I mean, he was also probably extremely overheated. It was pretty hot down there, but I think he looked pretty frustrated. He has those post games, seems like 1 or 2 every year, where the answers are brief and he's sort of at a loss for what to say. And that was one of them on Sunday. So the question now is, does that frustration turn into him, going scorched earth and getting on another heater, or does this compound and go on for a little while they try to find their way?
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's take a real quick break. Come back on the other side. I'm going to get to a couple Sabre topics. Matt Fairburn, Kris Baker. Guys, you guys are both hockey lifers. So the Sabres are 5-6-4 in 15 games right now. Going into Wednesday night, we're recording this shortly before they take the ice here on Wednesday night, so who knows how that game's going to play out. But they got 14 points right now as things stand. They're 3 points clear of last place in the entire Eastern Conference. But it's weird because I don't feel like they're playing on the ice like a last place team in the conference, if that makes any sense. Here's why. There's no other place to start but here. The injuries. Not just injuries. The injuries and the illnesses and stuff on the ice, off the ice, just 15 games into the season. I'm not going to run through them. We'll be here all night. But is this if this isn't unlike anything you've ever seen, Kris, we'll start with you. It's got to be close. This is just insanity. How many, not even just players, but key players, they're down right now, just 15 games in. And again, they're not all because of, they got hit along the boards and suffered a shoulder or knee injury. Some of them are just like almost borderline weird the way it's happened with the Sabres.
Weird is the word. Yeah. It's the volume of injuries, but it's also the method of how these injuries came about, whether it's Josh Norris taking a face off and going down, like falling on his face and being done for the year, basically, or at least, after the first game of the season anyways. But the mystery with like a viral, infection, Matt, that Zucker has, like he's got some kind of crazy virus that he just wipes him out. And it's just a really strange year. Haven't seen anything like it. Their depth is certainly being tested. I don't know, like thankfully, I think for them, they got some points that maybe last year they wouldn't get, but I don't know. There's times where I look at this team and they're so inconsistent that I think they're probably right where they should be in the standings. They look better than they did last year, but they don't look like a team that is playoff worthy or 4 points. Let's look at it the other way. 4 points from a wild card spot. They certainly don't look like a team like that. Matt, I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, they had moments early in the season when they were healthy enough that you started to think maybe things were coming together, but I find it so hard to judge the type of team that they are. Dom at The Athletic does his daily like playoff odds, based on his model and projections, and he has factored in some of the injuries and still has them at 26%-ish chance to make the playoffs, which is not great. There's a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference ahead of them, but there are, a lot of Sabres fans, I think, that might say 26% sounds pretty high based on it just feels bleak. Like Dahlin takes the leave of absence, on last Friday. And we know how this team is without Dahlin, right? He was out for a good chunk of that 13-gamer last year. It was a big reason why they lost a bunch of those games, why they couldn't stop that sooner. You have Kulik with a blood clot issue that is going to keep him out for at least a month, I would think. Kris mentioned Norris. One we forgot to mention the other day, Kris, when we were rattling all these off, the Benson at the beginning of the year getting hit with a puck in practice and then having some sort of something got infected and it blew up. He had to go to the hospital and he missed the first few games of the season. Now he's hurt again with a more he has some sort of foot or ankle injury, and it's okay, cool, something normal,
and somehow that Benson one is the least freaky of
right.
These injuries that they've had
slips
this
your
year.
mind because you've got Kulik, you've got Dahlin, you've got Zucker, who Lindy Ruff said the other day hadn't eaten solid food for 9 days.
Oof.
I'm what the hell is he dealing with? This is just madness. And so it's created an interesting situation for us, I feel like, as people who, cover and analyze the team, to be you don't give everybody a free pass, but also in this moment in time, it's 5 of your top 9 forwards from training camp are currently not playing and probably won't be for a little while. So what exactly am I supposed to say your depth's not good enough because you should have foreseen 5 top 9 forwards being out 1 month into the season? I don't think any team could withstand that. And to your point, Pat, I think the the fact that they're sitting where they are, it could be worse. Like, it doesn't feel like they're playing like a last place team. It doesn't feel like they're playing like a playoff team, but I've actually been reasonably impressed by Tyson Kozak. I think Osland and Roseanne have looked better this time up. And so
Josh
these are
Doan.
Josh Doan, Josh Dunn even, has Josh Dunn's been, pretty solid guy that was supposed to, start the year with the Amherst. So some of the depth actually has stepped up. It's just kind of an untenable situation. Like it can't go on too much longer with like this, because I just don't know how they stay afloat. The Eastern Conference is so crowded right now. Everybody's in it. Everybody's above 500, I believe, besides the Sabres. So it's not going to be easy to jump all those teams once you are healthy if you fall too far behind.
And besides all the guys you talked about, Kesselring didn't start the season. He started the season hurt. UPL was not fully healthy when the season started. Greenway didn't start the season. That's a guy they gave an extension to. Colton Ellis comes in. He plays one game in front of a crowd. His family, he wins the game. Good vibes. And then we find out he gets hurt afterwards. So, yeah, it's been crazy. I guess the other question I would have is, how do I would say they've somewhat weathered the storm to this point, because like you said, Matthew, it's bad, but it could be a lot worse. It almost feels like somehow, even though they only got 5 wins right now, it feels like it could be worse. How do you weather the storm realistically? Can you at this point? This because like it can't go on much longer, right? Like they're not going to be able to weather the storm. If this is the same situation in a month, I don't know how they're not buried again in the standings. And I won't know how I feel about this team if they are, because unlike some other seasons, this feels like a kind of a legitimate excuse what's going on right now.
In a month, it should be better injury-wise, but you also don't know who goes down between now and a month from now. Like a month from now, Josh Norris should be getting closer to returning. Justin Danforth should be closer to returning. Not 100% positive, but I would think he's got a shot to be back within a month. Kulik, that one is definitely up in the air. Zucker should be. I mean, if he's not, then that's incredibly concerning.
Sure.
But so you start to get some of these pieces back. Benson, I think, is probably, if I had to guess, maybe a week to 2 weeks tops. So like within a month, he should be back, and he's incredibly important to what they're doing. And Dahlin's another one that's like kind of up in the air. We don't know how long he's going to be away. So in a month, I want to say that this will be better injury wise, but a month is also a long time to weather the storm, to your phrase there, because if you're out of it by Thanksgiving, if you're 5 or 6 points out of the playoffs at Thanksgiving, I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but that's a lot. Not a lot of teams come back from that to make the playoffs in a league that's awarding overtime points, and the parity's incredible night to night. So they really have to scratch and claw. These next 10 games Kris and I talked about on our show left in November here are massive.
Yeah, look, I think that you want to give Dahlin, Pat, like the time to be a human being and be with his fiance. But how do you weather the storm? It starts by getting him back when you get him back at the same. That's the way to answer the question. Not to force him back, but that's how it starts, in my opinion. Got to get Benson back. Benson changes the whole complexion of your forwards when he's in the lineup, and that's the problem. Is that he's a 20-year-old kid, and you're leaning on this guy to kind of bring it all together in the forward ranks. In the meantime, without Dahlin, while he's on his leave of absence, with Benson recovering from whatever his latest, not his face blown up now, it's lower. The guys have to score. They have a finishing problem. They have the 3rd worst shooting percentage in the league. They got to bury more chances. That's how you weather the storm, is bury the chances that you get right now while you're getting healthy and you're waiting for guys to come back. That's the best way to answer the question. Goaltending hasn't been Goaltending's been not the problem this year, though. Really, like, it's been better than it was. Look, they're only 1 point off their pace from last year through 15 games. And on Thanksgiving last year, they were like, what?
They were
Like
in
right
a
on the
playoff
cusp.
spot.
They were in the playoff spot. They were right there. Yeah, I think their points percentage was off by a smidge, right? But like they had the same amount of points as the team that was in the 8th and final spot. Pat, so they're only 1 point off the pace from last year. Get a couple wins. This batch of games, they haven't won a game on the road. That's another thing. Win a game on the road. They got a couple chances here this week coming up, starting with, you mentioned it. Well, after we record this, they're going to be out on the road in Utah. To win a game on the road.
Yeah, maybe people will wake up in the morning to a Sabres victory. That would be nice. We're winding down now. I just got 1 or 2 more questions left for you guys. I know it's getting late. Kris is already annoyed with me that we're not at Sunny Reds.
I'm all fired up now.
We're not eating wings at Sunny Reds. Kris is definitely not happy with me. I don't blame him. Has there been a silver lining a little bit for Kevyn Adams? Like in terms of, I feel like coming into the season, 14-year drought going into year 15, fans were out for blood immediately. Like this team did not start out well. They were going to get at him immediately, but I would say the injuries kind of because it's not his fault. All these illnesses and injuries are happening. You got to have a little bit of grace with that. Plus, I will say, maybe this team's not better than it was right now, last year or whatever. That could be debatable. But the new players, what is off season right now, early in this campaign, looks pretty good. Josh Stone has looked really good. Lyon has looked good in net. Connor Timmins is much better than I thought he was going to be. And then you got Michael Kesselring. You got lots of reasons for him to, to get excited about him as he gets more acclimated to Buffalo. This was a pretty good offseason for Kevyn Adams, isn't it, guys?
Yeah, I mean, on the micro of those transactions, you look at it, and I think it's probably the best offseason that he's had in his time as general manager. I think in terms of value added to the roster, I'm not sure there's one that comes anywhere close to it, actually. So there's been some positives there, but to your point, what has happened is between some of his moves working out pretty well in the current state of the injured list and the nature of some of those, absences, particularly Dahlin's, Kulik's, and Zucker's. Time and place, right? There's a time and place to sit there and be like, calling for his job. And I mean, people were chanting for him to be fired at like the second home game, or maybe even the first home game. They were chanting for him to be fired. People were showing up with paper bags. They did start 0-3. So people were ready to jump on that train, but they pulled themselves out of that in large part because of guys like Doan, guys that, Alex Lyon, that Kevyn Adams added. You would get a mulligan in almost any other circumstance, but I don't think Kevyn Adams has any mulligans left. So that's unfortunate, but that's also what happens when you have the first 5 years on the job that he had. You don't get any more mulligans. He doesn't have a contract beyond this season. So as we discussed on the show the other day, if you want to keep Kevyn Adams as your general manager, you need to give him a new contract. And can you imagine announcing a new contract for Kevyn Adams?
No. Not on Twitter.
And if you have, and not that fan perception or PR is everything, but if you're in the office and you're saying, we can't announce this new contract for our general manager, like it would be a disaster publicly. That's kind of a hint about where you're at. So it'll be interesting to see how the conversation evolves. And as Kris and I also discussed the other day, at the end of the day, if the guys can weather the storm and pull out of this, that'll be a great story, and it'll be a real feather in Kevyn Adams' cap, because it'll be guys like Ostlund, Roseanne, Kozak, these homegrown, drafted and developed players. That was part of the plan all along. And right now, they're waiting on 3 of their 5 best players, in my opinion, to get back in the lineup. Norris, Benson, and Dahlin. Without those guys, it's not a playoff team, but you need to hang in the fight. You need to be a point or two around the playoffs from a month from now when you get those guys back.
While Kevin did some things, Pat, like this year and had a good offseason on paper, I still keep going back to the fan sentiment when they traded Peterka was who's going to make up the goal scoring. Now I know that their injury, like the injuries have just piled up, but they're still not scoring a lot of goals. And I just mentioned Benson, like you got to get him back. He has 0 goals this year at the same time. That's what I'm saying. Like the guys that should be scoring goals need to score more goals, and they're healthy right now. Kevin had a clean slate with me. Matt hated that when I said that to him. I said, well, he's got a clean slate to me. He traded Peterka. Peterka was like the owner's favorite. Maybe that was like a big moment in his, learning curve as a general manager, his 5-year learning curve as a general manager, 6 years now. And I think that, when all is said and done, I don't see a world where Kevin is not part of the Sabres organization. I think he'll move on to a different job, and he's built up a lot of trust with Terry Pagula. But I do see a world where he's not the general manager after this year, regardless of what happens. Regardless if they turn around and make the playoffs. That's just kind of where I lean right now. I just kind of feel that way. I think things line up on the timeline. He brought in Eric Stahl, who's more of like a newer guy. He's got to learn the ropes, but Kekalainen is here, I think, for a reason. And I don't think he's here to just consult Kevin. I think there's a plan in place. The timing just seems right. Kevin had a lot of years here. That's just kind of how I feel. And I think, some of the talk track will be around that for the rest of the years, looking for those signs. I don't think it's if, it's when.
Well, and like you said, either way, like if it goes well, you get to kind of gracefully move up and hand over the reins. And you could talk up Kekalainen and the influence that he had and everything else. And if it doesn't go well, there's another way to step aside and maybe, like you said, have a different role, or at least feel like you contributed to, what comes next. And we're going to have a lot of time to talk about what that all looks like, whether that's the proper process that they should be going through anyways, to determine the next general manager of this team. But it has probably been put a little bit on the back burner just because of the current situation. And like I said, let's see. It's a long season. We got a lot of shows to do. I have a lot of articles to write. I don't need to, fire Kevin Adams tomorrow. But so let's see if the story to me right now is, can these guys pull out of it? Can Roseanne become a guy? Can Ostlund arrive ahead of schedule? Can Kozak he's becoming a man a little bit before our eyes, I feel like, in some of the way he plays away from the puck. Like, let's see how that all evolves, and then find out when, if at all, this team will get back to full strength, because it's been a pretty crazy ride in that regard.
There's plenty of storylines, by the way, too. Luukkonen is another guy. Can he reclaim the form that he had, at the end of 2 seasons ago? That would be important, because he got paid when he had that form, and that would be a nice tool for them to have also, if he can be more reliable when he gets some starts. There's a lot of things to talk about. Yeah.
Josh Norris, I know I'm not going to give you guys much longer. We'll save it for your show too, the talking points. But I do want to ask you. So Josh Norris, I saw that he started skating. I'm sure, I know there's no timeline right now, Matt, but you get any kind of sense for when, if you're going to take the optimistic vantage point with the Sabres, with the fans anyway, when do you think could be the earliest potential you'd be able to see Josh Allen back playing a game or two, and hopefully more than a game or two, before he's right back to where he's been?
Josh Allen playing a game or two for the Sabres would be good. That would be
yeah, you really want to feel the weight of the situation in Buffalo, Josh?
Like, you got to
rescue them. They're building.
How about Josh Norris?
Yeah,
Josh Norris. I think my ballpark in my head has been like middle of December ish. Around there. Sometime a little bit before Christmas. And look, I understand the skepticism around whether this guy can stay healthy. When I was tweeting that he started skating again, it was tons of responses of just great, so he can come back and play one game. But it's like, we have to also acknowledge some of the bad luck this guy's had, and I get that this one, it might have been something semi-recurring if it was core muscle related in any way, and that is something to monitor, because with Jordan Greenway, he had that, then it popped back up. He needed 2 surgeries before he finally got back. So if it is that, there's reason to be concerned about, potentially how fragile and injury prone the player is going to be the rest of the season. But otherwise, if his injury luck turns, I think he's their best forward, honestly. Like, I think he's a better all-around player than Tage Thompson. and Alex Tuck, like at his best when he's healthy. But that's
Most complete forward.
like,
right?
they're most complete forward. He's not going to score as many goals as Tage Thompson, and he's maybe not quite as good defensively as Alex Tuck, but I think he's their fastest forward for sure. And he's the reason I say most complete, best, whatever word you want to use, he's a center. Like they need badly a center. And that's the most important position on the ice. Most nights out, there's goalies are pretty important too, but the most important pieces to have when you're constructing a franchise are centers. The Sabres used to have what it seemed like an embarrassment of riches at center in their organization. And right now they have the opposite of that. They have Ryan McLeod as their number one center. Tage Thompson's been moved to the wing. You've got Oslin playing way up in the lineup ahead of schedule. Kozak, Peyton Krebs, like those are your four centers right now. If I had told you that in August, you would say there's no way this team's making the playoffs. And so getting Norris back is a really big deal if he can stay healthy. I understand that it's unfortunate. I think that the pessimism of Kevin Adams has bled into Josh Norris. You asked earlier, how hard is it to be Josh Allen? How hard is it to be Josh Norris? Like,
Yeah.
You almost can't win. I mean, first of all, you get hurt. Everybody says you can't stay healthy and you get hurt in your first game, which is just like, a little too on the nose. And you come to this new place, you're trying to make an impression, and you've already got, people that are kind of against you because they're against the GM who made the trade. So it's tough for him. So I hope for his sake that he's able to stay on the ice, and he seems like an A+ guy to have in the room. And he was super impressive in camps and in the preseason. So we'll see what happens when he gets back on the ice.
It reminds me a little bit of Dalton Kincaid with the Bills, just a premium player when he's healthy. I think Dalton Kincaid, by a significant margin, is the Bills' best pass catcher and route runner and best weapon right now for Josh Allen. But he's had a knee injury, then he had an oblique injury. Now he's pulled his hamstring last week. It's just, I don't know how it is. These are great athletes, they're professional athletes. They work their ass off for years and years and years to get to the level that they get to. It's not that they're not working hard. Just sometimes, I don't know if it's luck. I just don't know what it is, but just some players just don't seem to stay healthy. I hope that doesn't end up being the case and Josh Norris can get back and be a significant part of this lineup, because they do. I know that they need him. Last question. You mentioned Alex Tuck, and we're done here. 14 points for Alex Tuck right now. 15 games. He's playing about 19 minutes a night. Pretty on par for him. Where are we at with the contract? Probably the biggest surprise to me, if you went all the way back to the day before July 1st, so June 30th, I would have expected an extension to get done. Here we are now and going into the middle of November. Nothing's done, and it's kind of feeling a little harder to convince me that something is definitely going to get done now to lock him up. I always felt like it was imminent, just a matter of time. I'm not saying it won't get done, but it doesn't feel as imminent to me, at least right now. Are the Sabres in danger? Are they in danger of not getting something done? And if they're forced to trade him, like what would, as good as he is, like what kind of trade value do you get ballpark for a guy like him when you get up against a trade deadline? And let's just say they're out of it and they're sellers. You got to get rid of him at that point, right? I would think, what kind of value does he have? And how demoralizing would that be to the organization, maybe to the fans who are like, well, if you can't get a guy who wants to be here like Alex Tuck to agree to stay here, what are they doing? I know it's confusing to me, Matt.
Yeah, the whole thing is a little bit of a mess at this point, right? It's November and he's not signed. And to your point, he could have been signed in August. And I was with you. I thought easy contract to want to get done. Easy contract even for Alex Tuck. I know that there's a lot of people who say, why would he want to stay in Buffalo? Well, it's not just that he's close to home. It's that he can get 8 years and probably get the most money and get it in hand before he started playing games. And I think he was willing to do that. And it was never imminent, I guess, to your point.
Yeah.
Like at various points checking in over, the month of August, it never, to me, felt anywhere close to imminent as far as where the two sides were at. And now it's certainly not. these things can always change on a dime with one phone call, that bridges the gap, or a change of heart, or a decision that gets made on one side or the other. To your question about what he's worth, you get up to the trade deadline, it's not what he would have been worth in the summer.
Yeah.
If you knew you couldn't get it done and you were proactive and you moved him in the summer, you could have got a haul. Somebody's getting a full year. Somebody's getting the chance to probably extend him before the season. You're getting real value. I would think if somebody's trying to trade for him, it would be sign and trade ish. Maybe they would maybe want to have some sort of agreement in place. That's not a guarantee though, because some teams might just want a rental. And if it's just a rental, you probably get a first round pick, but it's late in the round. You maybe get, a young player, a prospect, but you're not getting truly what he's worth, because if you lose him, you're losing, a really important player, but you're losing a really important person in your locker room, in your community, what he represents from the Jack Eichel trade, all of that. It's a really bad look if you lose him. So I almost wonder, okay, nothing's done at the deadline. What's more worthwhile if you're Kevin Adams, getting the late first round pick and a prospect, or trying to take it to the summer and saying, we have to make every effort. We need to take this right up to July 1st and try to talk him into it. And I think what's making the issue worse is that there's a lot of uncertainty around this team. Adams doesn't have a contract. Lindy Ruff doesn't have a contract. Like, Alex Tuck doesn't really know what he's signing up for.
Yeah.
I mean, some out there would say he knows exactly what he's signing up for. A lot more losing, right? But that uncertainty around all of it matters, and it might not have mattered as much in July and August, but now you start the season and you're losing, and there's a lot of injuries. And I said it when we talked in August, Kris, the feeling around the Sabres, the feeling that Alex Tuck has is so much different in August, walking around Western New York, walking his two kids and his dog around their neighborhood, the sun's shining. It's like, yeah, I could spend the rest of my career here, than it is in November and December, when you're 5, 6, and 4, facing that uphill climb, facing the questions every day, and wondering, what the hell's happening to your hockey team. So there was a window to get it done. It's not like the window is slammed shut, but it's definitely not as wide open as it was.
Yeah, and that's what makes the whole thing really nervous if you're a Sabres fan, and probably Kevin Adams, because they started 0-3. I think the Bartletts were like, hey, we're going to step back. It was shortly after that season started. We're going to step back and allow Alex and his teammates to focus on winning games. And that's when everyone starts dropping like flies. And Darlene decides he has to take a leave of absence, right? Which everyone supports. But at that point, if you're Kevin Adams, don't you want to go back and say, hey, I know we wanted to focus on winning games. It's not looking like we have like the greatest opportunity to win some games right now. Let's get this done, because Kevin has to be desperate to get this done. It'd be completely deleterious if they don't sign him moving forward, for all the reasons that Matt mentioned. And the longer it goes, because this isn't a guy, Matt, I think that you take to the deadline. If you're deciding that you can't get him signed and you have to trade him, you got to beat the market and do it earlier. So I think they have to shit or get off the pot with this one in like the next month. Honestly, sign them or figure out what you're doing with them. And I know that's not good news for Sabres. Matt, you can't gamble, right? If you're Kevin Adams, you can't gamble and take it past the deadline. It's like,
what makes it
because that's where the money comes into play, and other teams are going to outbid them or maybe give them that extra year.
Well, they get the extra year, right? Well,
no, I'm saying I don't think the Sabres want to give them 8.
The Sabres might not want to give them 8, and so that might be part of the problem. I mean, structure could be part of the problem. As I wrote about last week, the Sabres don't hand out a lot of signing bonuses, and every other player in Alex Tuck's position gets a ton of signing bonus these days. It's just how it works. So there's a lot of things playing into this, but the Kevin Adams piece of this is interesting to me, because the pressure that he may or may not feel, a lot of that depends on our earlier conversation and what the plan is going forward. Is he feeling like, this is not his decision to make, potentially, the longer this goes on? In August, it definitely was. But in November, December, like, it's a big organizational decision, especially, I think Alex Tuck could push for 8 years here. And that's why I say he could get the most money here than he could anywhere else. But if you hit the market's thinning out really fast. He's one of the top 3 or 4 players available. in unrestricted free agency as of right now. So yeah, you want to get ahead of it, but I feel like the window might have already closed to truly get ahead of it. I think if you get the right trade partner, but you have to know you're totally out of it, right? So the next few weeks are important in that regard to decide, what are you as a team? Where are you going beyond this year? Like, who's calling the shots? What are you building towards? What's the type of team that you're trying to build, and how does Alex Tuch fit into it? And is it a no-brainer that he does fit into it if this is going to be another sort of, I don't want to call it a rebuild because I don't think they need to tear it down, but are they going to be retooling on the fly? And, who gets to decide who stays and who goes? I think Tuch should fit into whatever you're building, but that's not necessarily a slam dunk depending on what you're trying to do.
Pat, I know you want to get out of here, so I'll just say this. These 10 games that are left in November, they're critically important, not just for the standings, but if they lay an egg and the fans are going to be calling for Kevin's head and they have Kekalainen sitting right there, Kevin might be ready to maybe give the keys off earlier and not wait till the end of the season. Again, I'm looking at it this way.
Sure.
And it becomes critically important to Matt's point now about who's the guy that's going to finish the deal with Tuch if he's going to sign in Buffalo, right? Is it Kevin's deal to make? Is it Jarmo Kekalainen's deal to make? I'm already assuming that he's the guy, if you can't tell. Kekalainen. So it's like, that's why I'm focused on this month. And it starts, in Utah. Patrick's new home.
The skeptic, lifelong Sabres fan, I should say lifelong. I should say just in the last, handful of years or so, tells me that, Rosani plays good for a while, or they got Elenius, and then they're going to try to sell people that, that's the future of the team anyway, and they're making the right move and giving Tuch 8 years and all this money. Let's move on from him and, get the younger guys in this lineup, up in the lineup more. I think it would be disastrous. And I think it would be demoralizing to the organization, and I think it would be demoralizing to the fan base to not be able to get a player that loves this place and wants to be here and wants to win. If you can't get that done with him, I think that tells even the average fan a lot about the state of this organization, that they couldn't get it done.
It does depend on price too, right? Like there is a line, right, at some point that you can't overextend yourself too much. They've got $22 million in cap space next year. If Alex Tuch is going to command 11 and a half, like at some point you got to draw the line somewhere. And so I agree that you can't really let this guy get away. I also sit there and think they've let it get away from them in the sense that this might have been a $9.5, $10 million player in the summer. Well, all these deals that got signed pushed that up a little bit, and especially
I'm not paying him $11 million. I'm not.
No, well, that's what I mean. And if will somebody do it in next summer? Maybe there's going to be a lot of money to throw around, and not a lot of players to throw that money at. But that's a decision they have to make too. So it's gotten interesting, as it always is with the Buffalo Sabres.
If you can't sign him, you got to stay ahead of the trade market. That's just where I'm at with this one.
Something Kevin Adams is famously good at.
I always circle back to the Bills. And to me, I'll think of a guy like Spencer Brown. Like you sign a guy at the right time and you end up saving some money. Like if Bean would have waited one more year to sign Spencer Brown, he probably pays another $3 to $4 million in that market. He got it done. I agree with you guys. Not getting it done earlier with Tuch is going to ultimately cost them money, and maybe it costs them ultimately the player too as well. We'll see. Anyway, make sure you guys check out the Baker Fairburn Hockey Show. If you watch it on the video side, make sure you subscribe on YouTube and hit that little bell too, because you never know when a show is going to break out with you guys. It might be at 8 a.m. It might be at night after a game at some point. So make sure you hit that bell and go to Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to your podcast, to make sure you can get it on demand in audio form. Check out The Athletic too. Matt does an awesome job. I'm not just saying this. Between you with the Sabres and Joe with the Bills, forget about all the other things you get with The Athletic, the national stuff, which, by the way, I read literally all the time. I got the Knicks bookmarked. I got Notre Dame bookmarked. I see, I go there literally every day. But just Bills and Sabres alone for a Buffalo fan is more than worth the cost. Appreciate both you guys very much, man.
Thanks.
You feel better, Pat? You started off under the weather. Do you feel better now after talking about the Sabres?
I feel warmer. I feel warmer, but I feel a little disappointed that we didn't go to Sunny Rides and bang out some wings. But there always will be next time. That next time will definitely come when it's not winter, though. So anyway, for Matthew, for Kris, I'm Pat. Thank you very much. Brand new show, Bills Bucks preview coming up. tomorrow.